Well, I don't know when you are watching us, but here live right now, it's the first weekend of 2023. And I have to tell you, in our last series, I talked about how the holidays for me, especially this last week between Christmas and New Year's, always seems to be a blur. And this year was no different. It was a blur. And if you're like me, you still are trying to figure out how we're going to find the time to get the Christmas tree put away and all the decorations put away and what are we going to do with all those extra garbage that we have from all the boxes and the gift wrap and all of those things. And it can be a little bit overwhelming to try to get back into the groove. And it's not unusual for us to try to get all of that done while still trying to get back into the groove of what was normal for us just a few weeks ago before the holiday season got into full swing. Well, today we're starting a brand new series called Breathing Room. And it's all about how to stay emotionally healthy and spiritually alive in the fast-paced world that you and I find ourselves in. Because the reality for a lot of us is we live our lives at this crazy place, and it's hard to find breathing room. The pace is so fast that it takes our breath away. There was a professor named Dallas Willard. Dallas was a professor of philosophy at USC, and he was also a Christian and a theologian. And he had this quote, and I thought that this was a great way to start off our series. Someone had asked him, what is the greatest enemy of spiritual life in our day? And Dallas wrote this. He said, hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day. In other words, the speed of our lives, the fast pace of our lives, the cluttered schedules, and all of the things that we go through, all the distractions that we have to deal with, that is the greatest spiritual enemy in our lives. And that's kind of interesting, because if you had asked me before I read that quote, what is the greatest challenge to the spiritual life of people living here in the fast-paced, distraction-filled San Francisco Bay Area in 2023? Well, there's so many things. I would have said that maybe it's the cost of living. It's one of the highest areas of cost of living in all of the country, perhaps in all of the world. Or maybe it's the secular mindset of people. Like people here, we're not living in the South. We're living in a place where people just don't really have a faith orientation. Or perhaps it's politics, where politics can be so divisive, and we live in a place where people are always talking about politics. And Dallas says no. Dallas Wizard says no. Hurry is the great enemy of our spiritual life. In fact, listen to what he says next. He says, you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And it's true. Because, we think of Satan, we don't think of Satan, and Satan doesn't come to us in a red devil costume with horns and a tail and a pitchfork. He's much more subtle than that. He's a lot smarter than that. You know where we experience his influence? We experience his influence when we look at our crowded calendars. We experience his influence when we're trying to find our quiet time with God and we get a notification or a text beeps on our phone. We experience his influence when we spend just one more night away from our family, when we try to get that one more errand to run or that one more project to finish that can leave us at the end of the day completely worn out and tired and breathless. He tempts us late at night. He says, you can refresh with a Netflix binge or a good cheap glass of wine. Because those are the things that give us that immediate dopamine hit. But then you wake up the next morning and you feel even more tired and weary than you did when you went to bed last night. Corrie ten Boom said this. She said, if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. And sin and busyness have the exact same effect on your soul. They cut your connection with God and they distance you from the people around you. They can even disconnect you from your own heart. And if there is one word that describes Our 2023 fast-paced, distraction-filled Bay Area culture, it's busy. We're all busy. In fact, when we see people, one of the things that we'll say, how are you doing? Well, everything is great. I'm just so busy. I'm so busy. There's so much to do. You hear it everywhere. Parents are busy. Kids are busy. College students are busy. Married people are busy. Single people are busy. Empty nesters are busy. Retired people are busy. We're all busy. And I have to tell you, pastors, we're the worst at this. We are the worst. We're always trying to schedule in more meetings and more lunches and more work and more coffee and more all of these things, and we're just all too busy to stop and breathe and take a breath. Now, the reason I want to talk about this today is because we're starting a new year. And for a lot of us, a new year means new goals. It means new commitments. For some of you, it even means new resolutions, which I gave up on a long time ago because they end up being things that I can just never get to. But as we start off this new year, as we start off and we try to hit the ground running, if we don't pause for a moment, and if we're not careful, busy is going to overwhelm your calendar and it's going to kill your soul. In fact, our lives can start looking like this closet. Yeah. Anyone out there brave enough to admit that that's what their closet looks like? Or your attic? Or your basement? Or the trunk of your car? I mean, that picture of that closet is literally how some of our lives look. And listen, it's okay for your closet to look like that, for your attic to look like that, for the trunk of your car to look like that. But it's not okay for your life to look like that. It's not okay for your calendar to look like that. It's not okay for your family's pace of life to look like that, because when it looks like that, you have no breathing room. And you can get to this place where you're doing all this stuff and you suddenly realize that you're doing it all, but you're really not enjoying it. And your relationships start to deteriorate because you're trying to cram all of these things in, and you realize that you don't even have any time to spend with each other because you're busy doing something else to enjoy what you're doing. Kids don't enjoy the fast pace. They don't enjoy running around all the time, seeing everybody going in 100 different ways at 100 miles an hour. I mean, listen, it can be funny until it's not. Because it's not fun to watch friends who are so stressed over their schedule that their marriage starts to suffer. It's not fun to watch relationships that start to break down because they're just trying to do too much. It's not fun to watch friends who are stressed over work and they have no time to see their family. Sometimes we get to these paces of life where we're so busy driving our kids to different places that we don't even know who our kids are. It's no fun to see a couple who get to the end of the month and they're stressed and they're panicked because every dollar that's come in has already gone out and they have no financial breathing room. And so when the unexpected comes up, everything just falls apart. The way that you and I manage our time and our budgets can have devastating effects on us. And so what I want to do over the next 3 weeks is that I want us to take a look at what Jesus has to say about this, because Jesus has something to say about this. We're going to learn from Jesus because life is better for all of us when we have a little bit of breathing room. You know what breathing room looks like? Breathing room looks like where you don't have to drive at 100 miles an hour to get to wherever it is you're going because you're late. Where you actually arrive early and have a buffer of time before you have to go into wherever it is you're going. Breathing room is when you have time to connect with your family and friends. When you eat dinner around the table instead of eating dinner in the car at the drive-thru. Breathing room is when you get up in the morning and you spend time with God the very first thing because you didn't take out your phone and try to get that first quick dopamine hit by scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. Breathing room is when we start our day whispering with God before we start shouting out at the world. Having breathing room in our lives is awesome. fact, it's how God designed life, for us to have breathing room, where we would live our lives as we experience and receive love from our Heavenly Father. And then that love fills up our soul and overflows out of us into our children, into our spouses, into our family, into our employees, into our co-workers, into our bosses, into our teachers, into our fellow students. It flows out of us into everyone around us. That is how God designed us. God designed us to live within certain limits. You know, hurry doesn't just come from the devil. Hurry is the devil. Hurry is that impulse to squeeze as much into our lives as we can. And the challenge is that when we try to get everything out of life, we actually lose control of our lives. Now listen, breathing room, that term, you're not going to find it in Scripture. It's not a biblical term. But I believe that Jesus, when he makes this invitation, that he wants to speak this invitation into your heart and into mine today. An invitation from Jesus, the lover of your soul, to live a brand new way in 2023. A brand new, different way than we lived last year. Listen to what he says, as recorded by one of his friends, one of his students, a man named Matthew. Matthew writes this. He says, "Then Jesus said, 'Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light.'" Now listen, if you grew up in church, if you grew up a Bible person, you've probably heard this verse before. You've probably seen it on mugs. You've probably seen it crocheted and then hung up in a nice frame. It is a very common verse, a very popular verse, and it talks about a yoke, and it's actually this invitation from Jesus to a different, a countercultural approach to living your life with breathing room. Now, the definition that I like for breathing room is not actually mine. It comes from Andy Stanley, and he says this: breathing room is the space between your current pace of life, like how fast you're going, the speed of your life, the space between your current pace of life and your limits. It's the difference between your current pace and your schedule and your relationships and your finances. It's the difference between your pace and your limits. Breathing room is the space in between your pace of life and how hard you're going, how deeply you're loving, and how much money you're spending. Because listen, you and I, we all have limits. And even if you are a type A, high capacity, high energy kind of a guy or girl, if you continue to step on the accelerator as hard as you can all day, every day, and never let up, you may get farther in life in the short term, but you'll stop enjoying your life. You'll start getting angry and anxious with the people that you love most. In fact, in trying to get the most out of life, you actually lose control of your life. So as we start off 2023 together, here's the question. Is the pace of your life draining the peace from your life? Is the speed that you're going, the pace of your life, letting the peace in your life just drain out of you? Because here's the thing. As your pace increases, your peace decreases. Stress goes up and relationships suffer. That's what happens. We see this a lot. You get home at the end of the day, mom, she's always on the phone, dad is always on his laptop. When you're there, the kids are glued to their screen. One thing I've noticed about me is that the busier my life is, the less that I enjoy it. And the busier we are, the more superficial our relationships become. We end up not having the time or the energy to go deep in relationships, and so we end up having very superficial relationships. When you and we don't have breathing room, our stress grows up. There's more emotional stress. There's relational strife. And we get financial shock in our system because we don't live with any margin. Your pace of life will start draining the peace from your life. In fact, you might even contract a case of hurry sickness. It's an actual thing. It's a medical condition that was first discovered by a cardiologist named Dr. Meyer Friedman. Now, he's a heart doctor, so he understands this, and he studied his patients who were mostly these type A type of people who are chronically in a hurry, and they were always a little bit angry, and they were prone to heart attacks. And what he discovered was that living life at such a fast pace is unsustainable. It impacts our health. Listen to what he said. He said, hurry sickness is a continuous struggle, an unremitting attempt to accomplish or achieve more and more things in less and less time. Does this sound familiar to anyone? My most at-risk heart patients live their life at this breathtaking pace, and their family actually makes them sick. Do you know when Friedman first diagnosed this? In the 1950s. Before email, before iPhones, before one-click ordering at Amazon. Imagine what he would say about the fast-paced life that we live in 2023, especially here in the Bay Area. Now, I know this isn't scientific, but do you know where I see hurry sickness, where I can tell where people are, where they have hurry sickness? It's when you're going to the checkout line at Costco. And you see the person, and they're slowing down as they're scanning all of the rows, and they're trying to figure out which one is the one with the shortest line. But you can't just look at the line length, because you have to look at how many things people have in their basket, because that also affects how fast it is that you can get through the line. And then out of the corner of your eye, you see this lady, and she's coming in, and she's heading towards the line you want to get to, and so now you have to speed up and box her out. Or maybe you're driving and you're coming to a stoplight. And so about 30 yards away, you're slowing down already because you want to get the lay of the land, and you want to see which is the lane that's going to have the shortest amount of people, and which is you got to look at the car that's at the front of the lane, because if it's a car that looks like it's going to go fast, then even if it has more cars in that lane, you want to go into that lane. Or you're driving along on the freeway and you see somebody speed by, and you go, okay, man, I'm going to just get behind him and follow him, because if the cops come and pull somebody over for speeding, it's going to be the guy that's out at the front. He'll be the one to get the ticket. Anyone there do this? Listen, I know this because I do these things. It's hurry sickness. A couple of years ago, last year, 2022, I found this book, and I want to really recommend it to you. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. And it is, John Mark Comer is one of my favorite authors. I have a couple of other books of his, but this was a really great book. In fact, this went on my list of books to give people to read when they come on staff at our church. And it's entertaining, it's thought-provoking, and it perfectly fits the cultural moment that we find ourselves in. Now, in the book, John Mark Comer talks about the symptoms of hurry sickness, the signs that our speed of life is unhealthy and unsustainable. Now, see if any of these things seem familiar. The first one is irritability. We get angry and frustrated at people way too easily. Someone says something and it just ticks us off. Hypersensitivity. Little things set you off. You might get an email and it just, for the rest of the day, you're grumpy about what was in that email and gets you into an emotional funk. Restlessness. Restlessness is, you try to slow down, but you can't. You want to, you try to, But you can't. You try to have your quiet time with God, but as you're reading through the scriptures, it's just like it's too slow, it's too boring, so instead you pick up your phone and start scrolling through Instagram. You can't quiet your mind at night, so you're having trouble going to bed, and then you're tossing and turning all night. And then you suddenly wake up and you look at the clock or you look at your phone and it's 2:45 a.m. and you're thinking to yourself, please no, just let me get back to sleep, let me get back to sleep, let me get back to sleep, and boom, you're awake. And now you're awake and you just can't get back to bed. And you think, oh, man. And the reason why is that our bodies are so used to this fast pace and these little mini dopamine hits, and our mental closet is so cluttered with things that we have to do and things that we're thinking about that we can't get any peace or any rest. Another one is workaholism. Workaholism. Another email, another meeting, another hour of work and I'll be done. And we get to this place where we don't know when to stop. In fact, we don't know how to stop. And the challenge that we have with workaholism is that our culture actually has a different name for it. Culture calls it hustle. And hustle in our culture gets rewarded. But hustle, workaholism, will kill your relationships and it will poison your soul. It will. And it's not just the 9-to-5 jobs either. You can have workaholism with your non-paid jobs. I'm going to run one more errand today. I'm going to make one more trip to Target today. It's obsessive house cleaning and obsessive anything that has to do with anything that is not related to how you earn your living. In fact, you get home and you have what they call sunset fatigue, where you've used up all of your energy all during the day, that at the end of the day you have nothing left. Nothing left to give your spouse, nothing left to give your children, nothing left to give your family, because you've already used up everything you've had in you. And it makes you grouchy, and then when you're grouchy, it makes them grouchy. It's an endless cycle. He says emotional numbness. That's another sign where we feel flat. We just have no joy. We always feel weary. We have no empathy for anyone because we can't, listen, if you can't feel someone else's pain if you can barely feel your own. And that's what happens when life comes at us so fast. Sometimes it just makes us emotionally numb. The next one is lack of care for your body. Where you speed up so much that you don't have time to take care of yourself. You stop working out, you don't get enough sleep. I know exactly what that's like. You stop cooking at home, and so you start eating out more. You eat out, you gain weight real fast. It's a mess. Another symptom is escapist behavior. Comer says that when we're overtired or stressed, what we do is we turn to distractions. We know this. We overeat, we overdrink, we binge watch The Office again. We scroll through social media, we surf the internet. We look at porn. We justify all of these things by saying, this is just how I unwind. And it traps you. It traps you, and it can become a compulsion. It can become an addiction. The final thing is the slippage of spiritual practices. I find that when I get too busy, that's the first thing to go. My personal time with God is the first thing to go. The one thing that replenishes my soul is the first to go when it should be my first go-to. The thing that gives us energy and gives us fuel and gives us peace and joy, reconnecting with God through prayer and through Scripture. And it feels like you're just so busy that that's just one more thing. And so we settle for a movie on HBO and a glass of wine, and those are just lesser gods that say, I will give you rest, but they don't. They just leave you more restless and more disconnected than ever. Now look at these. Let's be honest for a minute now. How many of these symptoms do you see in your life? 3 of them? 5 of them? All of them? Now listen, if we were all here together, then you would see that everyone deals with these symptoms. You're not alone. And my goal is not to try to make you feel guilty or feel ashamed. Listen, I want to confess to you. Last year, I caught a really bad case of hurry sickness. I overscheduled my calendar. I overwhelmed my life. And listen, it wasn't bad things. They were good things. I traveled to a couple of great conferences. I started my last year of classes for school. I was invited to speak at four different churches on 18 different weekends. All great stuff that I love to do. But there was a moment when I stopped enjoying doing it. The pace, the speed was intoxicating. But right in the middle of that word, intoxicating, is the word toxic. Because that's what it became. It was toxic to my soul. My stress jumped up. Spiritually, I was worn out because I was trying to move at an unsustainable pace. I was physically exhausted, and so I stopped exercising. I know, you're saying, I can tell. Well, it's true. And there were moments where I was just emotionally flat. I felt a lot of mental fatigue. It was hard to focus sometimes. And I was very spiritually distracted. I found myself watching TV until late at night while scrolling through social media at the same time or cleaning out my email inbox. And you start waking up and you go right to the news instead of to the Bible because it seems like spending time with God was just more work. I caught a classic case of hurry sickness. And it wasn't healthy, and it wasn't sustainable. Now, do you know why I am confessing this to you? Because your pastor needs a detox from hurry as badly as you do. We all need it. We are all human. We all deal with these things. In my experience, my worst moments as a father and a husband come when I'm in a hurry, when I'm running late or when I'm doing too much, or when I'm barely spending time with God. I start snapping at kids, not listening to my wife. I am not at my best when I am in a hurry. And a lifestyle of hurry and a lifestyle of love are incompatible. You can't do hurry and love. So for a follower of Jesus, we have to take this seriously. If you're a follower of Jesus, this is a serious thing. Because Jesus says the whole point of the Christian life is for us to love God and to love others. To receive love and grace and peace in us and watch as it builds up in our soul and overflows into other people. But chronic busyness will poison everything important in your life. It will poison your spirituality, your health, your marriage, your parenting, your relationships, your creativity. It will poison everything in your life. John Ortberg wrote this. He said, "For many of us, the great danger is not that we will renounce our faith. It is that we will become so distracted and rushed and preoccupied that we'll settle for a mediocre version of it. We'll just skim our lives instead of actually living them." Now listen, this isn't all doom and gloom. There is hope. I see myself in this list of symptoms. Maybe you see yourself in that too. And for all of us, what I want for all of us is as we shut the door on 2022 and recalibrate our lives for 2023, I want us to make a difference in 2023, where we will all be emotionally healthy, spiritually alive, and have the capacity to just breathe, to be less anxious, to be less angry, to have more peace and joy and love in our lives, to be able to slow down enough to hear the voice of God, to experience the joy of life with Jesus. Listen, if you and I want to grow spiritually, we have to have breathing room. You have to have a sustainable pace of life, and a Sabbath rhythm to your life. And this is an invitation from Jesus to do that. Listen to him as he speaks to you. Hey, come here. All of you. Come here, all of you who are weary and burdened. Are any of you weary? Do any of you feel a heavy burden? Anybody look back on 2022 and just feel this bone-deep tiredness in your body and in your soul? If you do, you're not alone. And Jesus extends this invitation. He says, take my yoke and learn from me. In other words, I'm about to teach you something. I want you to learn something. And I want you to learn it from me. And I am gentle. I'm not driven. I am humble. I am not ambitious. And he says, and you will find that rest for your souls. Jesus is saying, look, I get it. Life is heavy. Life is hard. And I know you might be looking at me and saying, Pastor, listen, you don't know. I would love to just be a pastor like you. Well, all you do is golf all week and then come and talk for an hour on the weekends. Yeah, I hear that every once in a while. And I don't golf all week. In fact, I can't even remember the last time I picked up a golf club. But I get it. Right? I'm not in the situation you're in. You're not in the situation I'm in. We're all different. And you might look at me and say, well, I'm older than you are, so you don't get it. Or I'm younger than you are. Well, my kids are older than your kids. Or my kids are younger than your kids. Well, I don't have a job. Well, I'm overworked at my job. Well, I have 2 jobs. I get it. But listen, this invitation from Jesus applies to everyone. It applies to you, regardless of your age or your life situation. And here at the start of the new year, I believe that Jesus is telling us that there is a whole new way for us to live our lives. Jesus says, I want to give you breathing room. I want to teach you. I want you to take my yoke upon you. Learn from me because I am gentle and I am humble in my heart, and you will find rest. That rest that you crave for your souls. He says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now that word yoke, it's church people, you heard this all the time, but a yoke is simply a tool. That's all it is. It's a tool. We have a picture of it here. Farmers take the yoke and they put them on the shoulders of 2 oxen, so they start walking together shoulder to shoulder. And they'll attach something to that yoke, whether it's a plow or a cart, and the 2 oxen will move together with that yoke that holds them together. Now the yoke does 2 things. Number 1, it sets the pace of the animals. In other words, when 2 animals are yoked together, one can't move farther than the other, one can't move faster than the other. The second thing it does, it distributes the weight between them based on their strength. It distributes the weight between them. Now, Jesus was a rabbi. Rabbi is just a Hebrew word that means teacher. And every rabbi had a yoke. And the yoke was the unique set of teachings that they had, the unique way that they walked with God. And Jesus is saying, listen, take my yoke. Take my unique way of walking with God and put that on you. Hitch yourself up to me, and you and I will walk shoulder to shoulder. I will show you how to walk with God at a completely different pace. And I am going to help you carry the load of your life. I'm going to be the one to do the heavy lifting. Because he knows that some of you have a heavy load. Some of you have a heavy burden that you're carrying for your marriage or for your children, for your relationships, for your money, for your schedule, for your emotions, all of it. And Jesus says, I'm going to show you how to carry that load. I know that you have a hard and heavy load, but take my yoke. Jesus says, my yoke is easy. My burden is light. It's the exact opposite of what you and I deal with when we try to deal with it on our own. Jesus says, listen, hitch your life to me, and I will give you breathing room. You'll get to experience life to the full. You'll get to break the chains of busyness in your life. You'll get cured from the pathological need to have to do more, to be more, and to get trapped by the unhealthy addictions that drive us. And Jesus is saying to you, come on, give it a try. Just give it a try. Take my yoke for a little bit. Lean on me. You can do it. And I'm gentle and I'm humble. Take my yoke so that you can just breathe. Now listen, I want to try something. It's a little breathing exercise. I'm going to read this invitation from Jesus, but I'm going to do it slowly. And as I'm reading it, I want us to stop and take a breath and just absorb into our soul the words that Jesus is saying. And if you have to, or if it's easier for you, you can close your eyes. Unless you're driving, then don't close your eyes, because that's a whole new problem there. But let's just do this. All right, here we go. Everybody together, let's inhale. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened. All right, now breathe. And I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. And breathe. For I am gentle and humble at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Breathe. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now, man, that feels good. Now listen, that's not some new age practice. I mean, I know we are in California, but that is not what that is. That is actually an ancient spiritual practice called breathing prayer. And what is so great about it is that you can take it with you wherever you go. When you're in line at Costco, when you're at that stoplight, you can go into the slow lane and take the time to breathe. Breathing prayer. It's just one of many spiritual tools that are out there that people have been using for thousands of years to still their minds and to find peace and to allow the presence of God into their lives. And as we start this year, what I want to do over these next few weeks is I want to teach you a few of them, a few of these different spiritual tools. I mean, we all need new tools sometimes. And so I want to give you this invitation from the lover of your soul, because Jesus loves you. And He doesn't want the pace of your life to steal the peace from your life. So let's do something different this year. Let's do something different for 2023. Something that is completely different from 2022. Let's take off the yoke of toxic busyness that we have been carrying and put on the yoke of Jesus. He wants to teach us a new way to walk so that we can live our lives at a sustainable pace. And that's what He's saying to you. He's saying, come on, yoke yourself up to me. Walk through life together with me at my pace. I will help you carry the weight of your life, and it will be easier and it will feel lighter. Now, the burden and the heaviness doesn't change. Your life situation is going to be there, but you are not going to have to carry it alone. Jesus is walking with you, and He's the one that will be doing the heavy lifting. Jesus is inviting us to travel through life at the speed of relationship with Him, to step away from the overwhelming calendar, the overwhelming financial pressure, and into emotional health and spiritual rest, and to get a little bit of peace in our soul. So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to talk about new routines and rhythms that are sustainable for the long haul, that allow us to be more present with God, to be less angry and anxious with our families, and to experience more peace and joy with the people that we love. Now here's the thing, if you want to have the life of Jesus, then you have to practice the lifestyle of Jesus. And so we're going to look at what did Jesus do to practice this unhurried way of living. And over the next 3 weeks, we're going to focus on these 3 habits of Jesus, 3 things that he did to help him stay connected to the Father and to help him stay focused, both in the long term and for that specific day, on the life that he was called to live, and to find incredible peace and love and joy. The first practice that we're going to talk about is silence and solitude. Now, you can read about this ancient practice, and believe me, it's needed now more than it's ever been, because our world is very, very noisy, and the distraction is ramped up by social media, which everybody has now. Listen, if the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is grab your phone, then it's like taking a glass of anger and fear and outrage and just look, and just filling it up in you. And that's how you start your day. And if you start your day that way, then it's no wonder that your day is filled with anxiety and distraction and negative feelings. Of course it is, because look at how you started. So you're actually going to have an invitation to turn your smartphone into a dumb phone. Now, I did this last week before. I did this right before New Year's. I deleted Facebook, Twitter, email, all of my news apps, all of the streaming services, all of it off of there. You know why? Because I made the decision that I own my phone. My phone doesn't own me. And so in this digital age, what we're actually talking about is digital discipleship. Look, Jesus was busy, but he was never overwhelmed, because he prioritized silence and solitude with his Father. And it centered him, it brought him clarity, and he was able to accomplish more than a regular person could and still have peace and joy. So we're going to learn a little bit about silence and solitude. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how to observe the Sabbath. Now, the Sabbath is a Hebrew word, and it simply means to stop. But Sabbath is more than just a day off each week. It's not just to rest, but it's also to delight in God and his creation. But most of us, we use Sabbath as an extra day to get things done, to get more done, to get things done that we didn't get a chance to do during the week, to pay our bills, to run errands, to catch up. That's not Sabbath. Sabbath is a gift from God, a day that he gave us to enjoy his creation, to connect with our families, to connect with him, and to rest. You see, Sabbath isn't just a command, it's a spirit. And I'm going to teach you a Sabbath rhythm that you can bring in Monday through Friday that will keep your work-rest balance in sync. And the last one is called simplicity. Right now, everyone is talking about minimalism. It's like the big thing. How do I not get buried in my life by clutter, right? How to Marie Kondo your life. Well, listen, did you know that Jesus was the one who pioneered that? When he says, don't worry about what you're going to wear or about what you're going to eat. See, we're going to learn to live with less. I'm going to teach you how to have a spirit of contentment. Now, let me tell you something. These practices are liberating. These 3 practices of Jesus: silence and solitude, Sabbath, and simplicity. And we're going to do one each week, and we're going to do this together, coupled with a 21-day fast that starts next Sunday, January 15th. Now, a fast is where you give something up to get closer to Jesus. So for me, it's going to be a TV fast. I know that in my life right now, I've got to get that under control. So except for football, go Niners, I won't be watching TV on any device for my fast. So every week, I'm going to give you super practical tools so you can try out the yoke of Jesus and see the difference that it can make in your life. Look, I know that life isn't easy, but Jesus says there is an easier way to live your life. And if you are my follower, I want to give you a yoke to limit your speed, to distribute the weight, to let me carry the hard part if you will just follow my pace. Because remember, when your pace decreases, your peace increases. Now I know there's a lot of you who are saying, Pastor, you just don't know my life right now. I just couldn't do it. Okay, listen, I feel that. I understand that. But Jesus is telling you, not me. Jesus is telling you that your pace of life can be slowed down. That you can simplify your life. And you can live with breathing room, even right here in the middle of the fast-paced, distraction-filled, busy Bay Area. But you're going to have to add some new habits to your life, and you're going to have to get rid of some old ones. And it's a good time to do that because it's the start of a new year. And it's a time for us, it's a great time for us to start moving towards getting some breathing room. Jesus is calling you into it. He says, come to me, all of you who are weary and carry a heavy burden. I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I am gentle. I'm humble. And you will find rest for your souls. Now, I have a gift for you. And my gift for you is homework, actually. But this is my New Year's gift as we're starting off the year. I made some cards like this. And for those of you who are watching us here in person, live, they're going to hand these out to you. If you are watching us online, there's going to be a link in the comments where you can download it and print it out. Or if you message me, I will be happy to send you one of these pre-printed cards. But on this card, you can see that it's a business-sized card so that you can keep it with you. But you will see some math symbols. There's a plus and minus sign, and then on the back there's a greater than and a less than sign. So you can see all of that today. Now here's what I want you to do, and I want you to do this today. If you're watching us online and you don't have the card, then write it out on a piece of paper until you get your card. All right, but I want you to do this today. I want you to put one word or something one word is going to go on each line of this card, right? And so we're going to start here, and it says in the corner, it says 2023 and me, that's you. 2023 is the year, 2023 and me, that's you. All right, so on the first line, it has a plus sign. So what I want you to write on that plus sign is one thing you know you need to add to your schedule. One thing you know you need to add to your schedule. For me, I have my card here. I needed to add exercise. Got to add it to my schedule. Because I didn't have it. I was doing it great, and then I stopped. I need to add that to my schedule. But for you, it might be different. It might be quiet time with God. It might be date night with my wife. It might be family dinner every Friday night. It might be vacation. That might be the word that you're going to write, because some of you are not taking your vacation time. Then underneath the plus sign is the minus sign. That's subtraction. What's one thing you need to subtract from your life this year based on the word of God that you heard today? For me, that's easy. TV at night. Got to do it. Too many late nights watching TV, sleeping late, getting up early, tired in the morning, frazzled all day. I don't know what it is. I'm going to actually start something I saw over the break called the 3-2-1 system. 3 hours, no eating 3 hours before sleeping, no drinking 2 hours before sleeping, no screens 1 hour before sleeping. And so that's what I'm going to do. Maybe for you it's Netflix or Disney Plus. Maybe for you it's YouTube or TikTok. Maybe it's too many nights out during the week or too many sports that you're watching. What is it that you need to subtract from your life this year? Put that right there. Now, when you turn it over, you have the greater than or less than. So the greater than is more of. What do you want more of this year? For me, I've got a short season of my life where both of my kids are living at home again. And I know it's not going to be long. And so I want to have more time with family. That's what I wrote. I put time with family. Time with family is what I want to have more of this year. But you, what is it for you? Maybe it's reading more books. Or maybe what you want more of is a person. You're going to write a person's name there. Maybe your parents are getting older and you want to spend more time with your parents. And then what do you want to have less of this year? Less traveling, less late nights at work, less eating out, less running around on the weekends. For me, it's less work at home. That's what I put, less work at home. I want to do all of my work at the office, and then when I go home, I get to spend time with my family, distraction-free. I don't want to bring work home anymore. Now listen, what you put on this card, these cards are going to look different for every person, right? Every person is in a different season of life. And so every person's card is going to be different. But this is my challenge to you. Fill out the card before you fill up your calendar. Before you start putting and laying on things for this year, fill out this card. Listen, if you're married, then here's tonight's topic of conversation for over dinner. If you're single, then talk it over with a friend or a sibling or someone that you trust. I made it portable so you can carry it with you. I'm going to be putting mine in my wallet, and I'm going to take it wherever I am. So I want you to just take this and think about it and pray about it and write something on every line and then bring it back with you the next weekend when we gather together again, and we're going to start unpacking the 3 practices of Jesus that will help us create more breathing room in our lives. Listen, Jesus is inviting you into something new. The old things have passed away, and it's time for something new. And you and I, we can close the door on 2022, and we can let our hearts slow down and just listen. And let God take care of the world for a while. Because it is possible for us to step away from the frantic pace and the overwhelming schedules and just breathe. Because life is better when you and I have breathing room.
Thank you for joining us for this week's message. Gracepoint Church is located in South San Francisco, California. For additional content or to find out more information about Gracepoint Church, visit us online at wearegracepoint.com.